I successfully unsealed my Genesis weapon. This video tells the story of my Genesis liberation. At the end of the video, I will show the weapon and its respective skills. Timestamp for that is in the video description. I started the journey for Genesis about a year and a half ago, on July 21st, 2019, when I received an invitation from Dango to join the Black Mage team that he was in, since they were looking for a 6th. At that point, I had no experience in either Varus Hilla nor Black Mage, and wasn't in a squad for either of those bosses. But I like a challenge. Until I accepted the invitation and joined the squad. At that time, that squad consisted of Dango, Mace, Jarle, Haku, and Fortunate. However, Fortunate was quitting the game, and a few months later, on September 4th, Jess took his place, forming the squad you all know by now if you have seen any of my Black Mage clears. We did the necessary preparations, cleared Varus Hilla weekly to stock up on Shadows of Annihilation, one of the two components of a Fragment of Destiny which you need to enter the Black Mage fight, and at the end of October, several months after I joined the squad, we attempted our first Black Mage run with the current team loadout. For the little amount of experience that we had, I was happy to reach phase 3 with the squad on the first run, and then we all quickly died out. From that moment on, we threw ourselves at several runs weekly, sometimes even more than once per week, analyzing our runs, coming up with strategies to improve, and so on. We made progress over the last month of 2019, but we're not really able to break through phase 3 yet. This all changed in January 2020. In the last 2 weeks of January, we were able to reach phase 4 for the first time. We knew we were close to clearing now. And we did. On the 28th of January 2020, just barely before the month was closing, we were finally able to kill the Black Mage, marking the first Black Mage kill in Luna, and the beginning of our liberation quest.
Okay, bursting.
Almost there, keep it up.
Go, go,
It's
go.
done!
Oh,
We got
Good
him!
fucking job.
Good work!
Holy shit.
Finally.
Kill me!
Oh my fucking...
Don't kill her, dang.
I'm fucking nuking it.
It is as if something had changed in all of us from that onward, as the Black Mage clears after that became incredibly consistent, with most of them being first try clears, and only 1 or 2 runs being a second try. So I'm not going to focus on that, and instead, I'm going to talk about the Genesis missions. For those who don't know, in order to obtain your Genesis weapon, you needed to get a total of 8 Black Mage kills in, which makes the liberation process an 8-month journey, since you can only clear the Black Mage once a month. In addition to this, you also need to solo most of the Black Mage's commanders under specific restrictions imposed upon you. For the first month, we had to kill Heart of Onlyon with only our weapon, and in my case a secondary too, because that's how Zero works, our arcane symbols, and a final damage penalty. Even with those restrictions, Onlyon was a formality. Bind, burst, clear. Next up was Arcarium, with similar restrictions and a similar fate. Bind, burst, clear. Then came Magnus, with similar restrictions too, and that mission sucked. It was in no way difficult, but just incredibly annoying. It's Magnus after all. It took me around 6 minutes or so to clear it with a whole bunch of deaths, but whatever. 3 down, 5 to go. The next mission is to kill Heart Lotus with just a final damage penalty. Considering that at that point I was soloing Heart Lotus weekly, it wasn't all too difficult. I had a solid run, no issues whatsoever. Then came Heart Damien, which you need to solo with a 5 life count instead of 10 as its restriction. That one started off rough, as I took a very unnecessary death early on, kinda got me nervous too. But in the end, that was the only death I took, and thus another mission out of the way. And then I got stuck. The next mission was Hard Will. At that time, the mission was still to kill it in 20 minutes instead of 30. It was later changed to a 1.1 times modifier to percent HP attacks or 10% more damage taken. But the timer wasn't the issue. Phase 3 was. In case you are not aware, for phase 3 you only have a certain amount of time before webs fill up the screen, after which you cannot regenerate Moonlight anymore, and thus you have to kill him either before the webs fill up the screen, or kill him off the 8-second iframes that you get after you resurrect, thanks to the resistance link skill. Zero at that time was not capable of dealing enough damage to kill Will phase 3. In practice runs I was able to barely break through 50% HP left, which is far from a clear. In hindsight, maybe with a bit of server luck and absolute perfect execution, just maybe there is a small chance you can kill Will as a 0, but it was practically impossible. And even if, somehow, someway I cleared Will, I would have been stuck on Lucid anyway, as with the line output at that moment, 0 was literally, in all scenarios, not capable of killing phase 3 hard Lucid, as it was not able to output enough damage in the time limit phase 3 has to kill the boss. But there was hope. In KMS there was a patch in March that significantly lowered the percentages of Zero skills, but in turn gave all their skills a very much needed line boost. I think I did the math and found out that Zero would on average do 2.2 times the amount of lines it did pre-patch on its base skills. In addition, they also reworked Transcendent Rin's Blessing to do additional lines as well. After that patch, it would be possible for Zero to progress in Genesis, and one of the well-known KMS streamers was able to liberate on his Zero. I knew that with that patch going to GMS, it would become possible for me to progress too. All I had to do is wait. In the months of July and August, I helped Jarle, Jess, Mace and Dango unseal their Genesis weapons. Haku was, just like me, stuck in his Genesis missions. And the squad was more or less put on hold until this patch came to GMS. I was hoping it to be October, but GMS decided, here, have the Sengoku patch instead, I'm sure you'll love it. In hindsight, not a bad patch, but delayed my clearing by a month sadly. On November 18th, GMS got awake, and with that came not only the desired balance patch, but also a new set of V-skills. Zero got Ego Weapon, unarguably one of the better V-skills that came this patch damage-wise, thank you for that. And I was ready to tackle Will once more, and from that moment on, things went fast. On November 19th, I soloed the Will mission first try, and indeed was able to progress. I also cleared the Hard Lucid mission first try quickly afterwards, was able to get my Black Mage squad to clear Black Mage with me once more on the 21st, and thus it was one more Black Mage clear to go, and one more mission. Varus Hilla. This was a different beast, for many reasons. First off, I never properly attempted to solo Varus Hilla before. I had enough shadows from earlier runs still, and I knew that it was probably impossible for me to solo kill her anyway. And the times we did run, we mostly relied on corner strats with familiars healing us. So my experience with that boss was limited, rusty, and relied on cheese strats. In addition, I decided to add an additional restraint to the Genesis mission. I would ban the usage of healing familiars for my run. In my opinion, it'd take away one of the core mechanics of Hilla, which is the heal lock, and although that's fine for casual clears with the party just to get shadows, I didn't want to do this for my Genesis mission. I want a somewhat legitimate mission clear. Emphasis on somewhat, since Lucid Areas and boss familiars is still a thing to name something. So, after the Black Mage cleared November, I attempted the mission, and failed. My first mission that I was not able to get through first try. It wasn't a terrible run, but my lack of experience clearly showed. A day later, I attempted several practice runs just to get a feeling for the boss, with the first being an absolute joke, and me getting 5 string within a minute, but hey, that's a detail. That evening, on my second attempt, I was, to my own surprise, actually able to kill Hilla. In hindsight, I had a few incredibly lucky moments, and 2 of them I would like to highlight. The first was the first soul swipe, where I was knocked into a string at the exact same time the swipe happened. However, it did not consume my red skull. Had it been half a second later, it would have been my first life lost very early on in the run. The second was a lot later in the run, where I had 2 red skulls and an altar, with not a lot of time left to cleanse. I was able to cleanse, but Lotus was able to push me into another string, and then Hilla knocked me into the second. I was fairly certain I was going to lose 2 lives there, but an insane amount of luck kicked in. The altar spawned right on top of me, Hilla was far away and she didn't TP to me. I was able to cleanse once more several seconds before the swipe. In 95 of 100 runs you do, a situation like that is a guaranteed 2 life loss. Not in this one. The run ended up incredibly clutch in the end anyway, with 1 green skull left, but I was able to seal the deal on the second try on November 22nd. At that time, my Black Mage squad was willing to run with me on December 1st, so that I was able to unseal on the first possible day. I just had to wait until December 1st. In the meantime, I was also able to get my first Chaos Gloom solo in, my first Hard Darknail solo in, and my first full Varus Hilla solo in, with 4 health bars instead of 3. I hope this shows how the potential for Zero skyrocketed with Awake, and I'm very happy for that. December 1st came, the final Black Mage run I had to pass before Liberation, and it was an absolute clown fiesta of a run. What a joke. Oh, I made so many stupid mistakes throughout that run. Jarle actually died out, Mace was on his last life, Jess had a bad run too. But it didn't matter. We cleared, I was able to get my last Black Mage's remnant, was able to complete the Varus Hilla quest, and was able to liberate my Genesis weapon. And here I stand, in the Zero Temple, where it all began, with my fully liberated Genesis weapon. And it's bugged. It's actually bugged, I cannot believe it. I mean, when I looked at it at first I was a little bit surprised, but it turns out that in GMS, the Sweetwater set, somehow, I don't know, but the weapon doesn't recognize it, because I have a glove, a shoe and a cape, which makes 3 parts. which should, in turn, allow the Genesis weapon to be a part of it. But it's not. And I don't know why. I do know that it also happened with the Amaterasu set, the Japanese set. It does not happen with the Lionheart set. So the Lionheart set properly gets added to the set effect, like the set effect gets part of it, but it doesn't work with Sweetwater, which is really unfortunate because I'm running Sweetwater still, and my Arcane, still working on it, is really far away from being done, so I'd rather have it be part of Sweetwater, but of course it's a GMS thing. So I'm gonna have to wait to that. In addition, there is a second bug with the weapon, which is a little bit more concerning, and something I found out when I was swapping back and forth between Arcane and Genesis. Notice how the flame is gone, but the total attack that I got from liberating is still pretty much the same. For some reason, I do not know why, the flame got added to the blue stats and is technically now quote-unquote part of the scrolling. This could mean that I could double flame my weapon, and if I could repeat this, I could technically make an infinite attack weapon. Obviously, not gonna do this. I've already reported this to GMS, and I hope that the dev team will soon fix my weapon, both in a good and in a bad way, because obviously would have been fun if I was able to go infinite with my weapon, but obviously that's really unbalanced, it's really broken. And I really want this to be part of Sweetwater set, really. So, other than that, it's still a Genesis weapon, it's still incredibly powerful, and I want to showcase the two different skills that you get. I'm fairly certain most people have seen the Genesis skills by now, but I'm gonna find a different map and showcase it, which is a good map to do. Let's start in Governor's Cavern, because then I can showcase them first. So, the first one is Tenedian Rune. It is a passive skill, it gets applied when you hit with any attack, and it will give you a 15% final damage boost for 30 seconds with a cooldown of 90 seconds. Which basically means that you have 30 seconds of uptime and then 60 seconds of downtime, because the cooldown starts applying the moment you trigger it. And I'm gonna put my transparency up a little bit so you can see that. It kinda looks like the Black Knight is behind you. Hopefully this is free. Of course it's not, so I'll go to a different map. This one should be free. And it is. Alright, so the moment I hit any enemy, note my range now, 65 mil. The moment I hit an enemy, it jumps up to 85. And you can see that the Tenedian Guardian is now behind me. And at the top right, it gives me a countdown for the buff and a countdown for the cooldown. And for the next, at this moment, 15 seconds, I now have 15% final damage bonus. It's pretty strong. It really helps with bossing, like honestly, especially on bosses that don't have full uptime. Like in Gloom, this is really, really notable because you can somewhat decide when you use it. The second one, Aeonian Rise, is an iframe. Yes, Zero now has Twin Blades of Time as an iframe, Time Holding as an iframe, and Aeonian Rise as an iframe. It's actually dumb. I have 25 seconds, because these can be added after each other, of full movement invincibility. Pretty much the same as a Paladin has, except that mine have a 3-minute cooldown. And I think Paladin is like 5 minutes or something. So it's really broken. And it's basically just, you press it, and you're invincible. You can walk through mobs. See? Nothing damages me. You can also activate it early to launch like an AoE attack. That kind of looks like that. If you do that, the effect is gone, and it's usually not worth the damage. You'd rather have the extra 1 or 2 seconds of iframe. So most people will probably not do that, they'll just go for this. But yeah, it's a passive final damage boost and an iframe. It's pretty good, especially with classes who need it. It's really, really broken on Zero, like honestly. 3 iframes. A pseudo iframe as well, because immune barrier can also act as an iframe if you time it right. It's really dumb, honestly. Anyway, there was one more quest that was left at the evening conference pavilion. I didn't do it yet. I saved it for this video, so let's go take a look what Nineart has to say. And that's the end of that quest line. This is the absolute end. I think the only option you have right now if you lose your item somehow is to restart the entire line, but I don't even think I can lose it because it's part of, like, it's... I think the only way for me to lose it is to swap back to Arcane and then boom it by Star Forcing or something. That's probably my guess of losing this, but obviously I wasn't planning to do this. This weapon is pretty much done anyway. So, yeah. And now I have a Genesis weapon. And whatever comes next, I'll discuss in a future video. I just wanted to showcase the journey of my Genesis weapon and my liberation. So, I hope you guys enjoyed, and stay tuned for the next one. Take care. Bye bye.